Some storms don't come to destroy you, my friends. They come to shake you awake. Let that one sit with you for a moment, because maybe you've been asking yourself, why hasn't it happened for you yet? You followed the advice, didn't you? You tried to stay polite but not distant, warm but not overwhelming. You smiled without looking needy. You dressed to get noticed, but deep down you prayed someone would actually see your soul. You held back. You waited. You gave your body carefully. Or maybe you didn't hold back at all. Maybe you gave yourself hoping this time it would finally turn into something real. And still you were overlooked, unseen, ignored, like a beautiful melody stuck on mute while everyone else danced to cheap noise. And now here you are, sitting with that quiet question, am I too much, too emotional, too gentle, too late? What is wrong with me? Let me say this clearly and loudly, nothing is wrong with you. You are not damaged, you are not behind. You're just in a season no one prepares you for, a season where the body goes still because the soul is getting ready to speak. See, most people think silence means failure. They'll say things like, she's dry, she's lonely, she must be giving off the wrong vibe. But what if that silence isn't rejection at all? What if it's redirection? What if your own soul is whispering, not now, not him, not this way? It's wild how they never told us the truth. They handed you a map full of shortcuts. Be prettier, act relaxed, flirt, but not too deeply. Stay sexy, but don't get serious. They told you if you played the game right, love would just show up at your door. But no one warned you that real love doesn't knock on doors that haven't opened themselves from the inside. Let me paint you a clearer picture. Think of a garden in winter. Everything looks dead. The trees look empty. The ground feels frozen. But beneath that cold soil, something is moving. Roots are growing stronger. Seeds are holding steady, waiting for the right warmth, the right sun. That's you right now. You're not empty. You're preparing. You're not fading. You're forming. And guess what? That building phase scares people, because a woman who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't throw herself into shallow waters just to feel a moment of connection, becomes mysterious, unreachable, even a little dangerous. Not because she's closed up, but because she's finally learning to guard her fire instead of handing out the matches. So if you're in a season where you're not giving your body, not dating around, not being chosen, don't see it as punishment. See it as preparation, because the woman who learns how to stand inside her own silence becomes a storm no one can sleep through when she finally moves. You don't need someone to pick you to prove your worth. You don't need a text to feel wanted. What you need is to hear yourself again. And that only happens when life slows down and you stop trying to fill every quiet moment with someone else's attention. So stay with me, my friends, because what's coming next isn't about tricks or seduction. It's about waking up. We're going deep, we're going honest, and we're not leaving any part of you behind. And if this message is already stirring something inside you, do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Not just to support this space, but to say yes to the version of you that is finally rising. You're not behind, you're just starting again, and beginnings hold more power than you think. Number 1, the invisible woman, the quiet ache of being overlooked. A diamond doesn't shine in the dark to be ignored. It shines because it's built from pressure most people can't endure. Let that settle in your chest, my friends. Because if you've ever felt invisible, this part is for you. You've sat in rooms where no one echoed your laughter. You've posted photos no one noticed. You've watched friends fall in love while you did your best not to feel like the only one always waiting. You fixed your hair. You fixed your heart. You worked on healing. You tried improving your energy, your boundaries, your mindset. You did everything the books, the podcasts, and the aunties told you, and still you were overlooked. And after a while, that ache starts asking questions you don't want to say out loud. Questions like, is it me? Am I not attractive enough? Is love just not something meant for someone like me? But let me tell you something you were never told. You were never meant to be background noise in another person's playlist. You're the song they won't be ready for until they've grown enough to hear real truth. Think of a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. It doesn't shut off because passing boats didn't stop today. It doesn't dim because no one came close. It keeps shining because it knows its purpose is not to chase ships, it's to guide the ones who are ready. You feel invisible, not because you aren't enough, but because you were never made for shallow waters. You were made for depth, for presence, for truth. And not everyone is ready to meet a woman who isn't begging to be seen, but learning to finally see herself. And I know your mind might argue back right now, but what if no one ever picks me? What if being strong means being alone forever? What if my moment already passed? No, my friend, you didn't miss your moment. You outgrew the version of love that would have claimed you before. You're not invisible, you're sacred. And sacred things are never put on display too early. You're not late, you're being refined. You're not unwanted, you're being protected. And if being overlooked feels this heavy, imagine the weight of being seen by the right one at the right time. So stay with me, because next we're talking about what really shifts when you finally stop performing for connection and start listening to the true voice inside you. Number 2, the withdrawal, the moment when the world starts losing its grip on you. The day she stopped explaining herself, the world got nervous. Because silence from a woman who once begged to be understood is louder than any scream. Feel that in your chest. This is the part no one warns you about. One day it just switches. You don't explode. You don't post dramatic quotes. You don't cry like before. You simply pull back. Not from anger, but from a deep, soft clarity. You stop answering late-night messages from men who never cared to learn your middle name. You stop obsessing over your outfits, your emojis, your value. You stop trying to create chemistry with people who only ever meet you halfway. And all at once, your world begins to shift. People start asking, "Are you okay? You used to go out more." Oh, maybe you should try putting yourself out there again. Translation, you're making me uncomfortable by no longer performing the way you used to, but they don't know this wasn't a plan. This was your soul stepping into the front seat. This was your nervous system saying, "Oh, no more auditions. We're done dancing for crumbs." Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And girl, when you started withdrawing, that was your awakening beginning to speak. The truth is, you didn't stop dating. You simply stopped settling. You didn't stop trying. You simply stopped twisting yourself into shapes that no longer felt honest. You walked away not to escape anything, but to actually hear your own voice again. And yes, it gets lonely sometimes. You'll scroll through pictures of people who look like they've moved forward faster than you. You'll wonder if being chosen is still the goal, and if you're somehow falling behind. But listen to me for a second, because this matters. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not damaged. You're breaking a pattern that was breaking you. The cycle ends with you. You're no longer hooked on being wanted by others. You're learning to want your own company without a room full of people applauding you for it. And that alone scares people. Because a woman who doesn't need constant validation to feel alive is the woman who finally starts making real choices instead of reactions. So stay with me, my friends, because what's coming next is where the quiet gets deeper and you meet a version of yourself no relationship ever gave you permission to become. Number 3, the shadow, meeting the you that no one else has ever seen. The scariest mirror you'll ever face isn't the one hanging on your wall. It's the one silence holds up when no one is watching. Let that settle in your mind for a moment, my friends. Because when the noise dies out, when the texts slow down, when the attention grows faint and the distractions disappear, that's when the real voice inside you rises up. And it's not always soft. It's the voice whispering at 1:34 a.m. Why didn't he choose me? What did she have that I didn't? Or was I too much? Or was I never enough? It becomes a loop, a replay of old moments, conversations you keep reliving, messages that stayed unanswered, nights where you gave too much of yourself just hoping to finally feel seen. And now, with nobody to perform for, it's just you sitting with those questions. But here's what most people never tell you: that voice isn't cruelty. It's a signal calling you inward. It's not your weakness returning, it's your unconscious knocking on the door. The part of you that got quiet while you were learning to be chill, easygoing, agreeable, low maintenance, unbothered. She's not wrong. She's returning. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The pieces of your truth that got pushed down so you could fit the mold others expected. The version of you that got edited out because people said she was too honest, too loud, too intense, too real. But here's the truth most miss. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. She's trying to rescue you. She's the one who still remembers what you actually want, not what you were taught to accept. And I won't sweeten this part. It's hard. Because when you stop blaming men for not choosing you, you're left facing the version of yourself who kept passing out your worth like a raffle ticket to people who never earned it. But don't run from this part. This is where your gold is buried. This is where real change begins. Not on a date, not in someone's messages, but here in the dark with you. And maybe you're thinking, if I go this deep, what if I don't come back the same? Good, you're not supposed to, because the woman who faces her shadow doesn't just attract better love, she becomes better love. So stay with me, because next we're stepping into something even more raw, to the part of you that misses connection so much you almost start craving the wrong kind again. Number 4, the slow starvation. When you miss even the wrong love, it's not him you crave. You crave the version of yourself who felt wanted, even if the feeling was a lie. Sit with that for a moment, my friends, because this part touches the deepest places. We all say we want true love, real love, steady love, but sometimes we miss the fake kind too. The late night message from someone who never checked on your soul, but still made your phone light up like it meant something. The flirting that didn't mean anything long term, but felt like warmth in the moment. The almost relationship that kept you hopeful with crumbs, but never gave you enough to feel safe. And now, in the quiet, the feeling shows up again. A slow hunger creeping in. You miss being touched, even by someone who never looked past your body. You miss being spoken to, even if it only happened when they were bored. You miss being chosen, even if it was by someone who never planned to stay. Let me tell you something clearly. You are not weak for missing the wrong love. You're human. Humans are built for connection. Your heart doesn't calculate logic when it's starved for presence. But hear me closely, my friend. What you miss is not him. You miss the feeling of being wanted. You miss the illusion of being enough. Even if it was short-lived, that ache you feel, it isn't just loneliness. It's withdrawal. And the real truth, you don't want him back. You want you back. The version of you who didn't analyze every word in a message. The version of you who wasn't decoding mixed signals like it was a full-time job. The version of you who didn't shrink herself just to keep someone mildly interested. That hunger you feel isn't for a man, it's for your own return. Because once you taste even a drop of your own worth, your real worth, you will never settle for breadcrumbs again. You'll stop wanting what almost felt like love, and you'll start preparing for the kind of love that doesn't come to fill a hole in you. It comes to meet a woman who already knows she is whole. So stay with me, my friends, because now we're moving toward the most sacred part of this silence, the part where you're no longer starving but awake and standing guard. Number 5, the vigil, the quiet waiting that holds weight even when no one understands it. They called it a dry season, but maybe it was a season sent from above to help you grow roots instead of chasing storms. Let that settle, my friends, because what you're going through right now, it isn't just a moment. It isn't a simple pause. It's a vigil, a sacred waiting. something the world doesn't cheer for, doesn't get, and doesn't applaud. You didn't choose it like a trend. You didn't wake up and say, "Today I choose stillness." It wasn't some cute challenge. Life gave it to you, one heartbreak at a time, one ghosted chat at a time, one almost love that never became real at a time, and now here you are, still standing, still quiet, still alone on certain nights. And you wonder sometimes, is this strength or sadness wearing a mask? Let's be honest. This path has cost you things. It cost you connection. It cost you nights where the silence felt heavier than the room. It cost you explanations because people kept asking why you're single like it's a condition to fix. It cost you the easy comfort of company that wasn't meant to stay anyway. But I'm here to tell you something that may shift how you see it all. This wasn't punishment. This was protection, because the woman you were becoming needed space. She needed silence. She needed all the noise to drop so her own voice could rise. And yes, it has been quiet, but that quiet has been doing sacred work inside you. You haven't been waiting for love. You've been waiting for yourself. Every time you didn't go back to someone who half loved you, every time you ignored a late message you used to fall for, every time you sat through a lonely night without breaking your own boundaries, you weren't being passive, you were being present, you were giving your body space to stop giving without receiving. You were giving your soul room to return. And no, the world won't clap for this kind of strength, but the woman you're becoming will. So stay with me, my friends, because where we're going next, we are moving from hunger into fire. This is where the ache slowly turns into a kind of quiet alchemy. Number 6, the rising, when hunger becomes overflow, or she no longer runs after fire just to feel warm, because one day she finally understood she was the fire all along. Feel that, my friends, because this is the moment when the whole journey starts to feel like it had a purpose. There comes a day, soft and unannounced, where something inside you changes. You don't even know the exact moment it happened. You simply open your eyes one morning and the ache is gone. And not because you pushed it down, not because someone finally chose you, but because you stopped searching out there for something that was always meant to be lit inside your own chest. It used to feel like hunger, that deep craving to be wanted, to be chosen, to be called beautiful by someone who didn't even know the quiet language of your soul. You used to reread old messages hoping maybe, just maybe, they would reach out again. But now you crave something else, something steadier. You don't need to be chased. You want to be met. You don't need someone to wake you up. You want someone who recognizes that you are already awake and alive on your own. This is the rise. This is where the thirst becomes clarity, where the attention you once begged for suddenly feels like too much noise, where you stop asking, "Do they want me?" and begin asking, "Do they even know how to carry what my heart holds?" And this right here is alchemy. Carl Jung called it transmutation, the turning of raw pain into a more refined kind of power. You didn't just sit in silence. You simmered in it. You didn't just fast from love. You rebuilt the very meaning of love itself. And now you're not chasing sparks. You're seeking resonance. Someone whose presence doesn't just thrill you for a moment, but actually expands you. The old you wanted attention. This new version of you wants alignment. And the old you needed proof. But this you, this steady, growing, brave you, is the proof. So if people start telling you that you've changed, thank them gently, because they're right. You've changed from empty to overflowing, from desperate to deeply discerning. You no longer reach for warmth from other people. You glow from the fire you rebuilt in your own hands. Stay with me, my friends, because next we're stepping into what happens when you stop needing to be chosen, because you finally understand the sacred strength that comes from not being picked. Number 7, the power of not being chosen. Rejection isn't always a door slamming shut. Sometimes it's God whispering, "No, not this hallway, love. I'm building a palace for you." Let that echo in your chest, my friends, because this part right here, this is where the wound becomes your weapon. You spent years wondering what part of you was wrong, why they liked your photos but never pursued your heart, why they called you wifey energy, but only when it suited them, why they chose someone else, someone louder, gentler, easier, anything but you. But let's turn that pain over and face it directly. You weren't overlooked because you were lacking. You were overlooked because you were never meant to belong everywhere. Because the world didn't always know what to do with a woman who refuses to perform just to be loved. You weren't picked, and thank God you weren't picked. Because every moment that felt like rejection was a divine redirection. Every time you were passed over, life was saying, not here, not small, not this half-life. You were never meant to shrink just to fit. You weren't created to be someone's backup plan. You weren't made to be tolerated. You were born to be recognized in full light. And here's the twist they never saw coming. The woman who learns to hold herself steady through not being chosen becomes untouchable. Not because she's closed off, but because she's finally whole. You can't lure her with tiny crumbs anymore. You can't wave temporary comfort and expect her to fold. She doesn't fall for almost. She walks with a kind of certainty you can feel. And yes, some people might call her intimidating. But intimidation is simply what power looks like to someone who is not used to seeing a woman who doesn't need permission to shine on her own terms. Let me say it clearly, you weren't passed over, you were protected, you were prepared, you were positioned. Because when your moment arrives, and it will arrive, it won't be halfway, it won't be hidden. It will be mutual, steady, clear, and impossible to mistake. So stay with me, my friends, because next we're not stepping back into the world as the same person. We're returning not to search for love, but to embody it. Number 8, the return. When she walks in full, not empty. She's not coming back for applause. She's coming back with authority. Feel that, my friends, because the woman who once felt unseen, who sat inside her own silence, who questioned her worth with every unanswered message and every almost connection, she's not waiting anymore, and she walks back in, but not like before, not with hunger in her eyes, not with emptiness in her hands. Now she walks in full, and not the kind of full that needs to announce itself loudly. The kind of full that makes people pause when she enters the room because something in the air feels different. Now she's not asking to be completed. She's not a half hoping for a better half. She is a whole, grounded force. And if love arrives now, it will meet a woman who isn't asking, "Do you see me?" but instead, "Can you meet me where I already stand?" This is what it means to return, not as the earlier version who begged to be chosen, but as someone who knows deep in her bones that being seen starts with seeing yourself first. No more bending yourself into shapes just to fit someone else's mold. No more calling crumbs a feast. You fed yourself truth. You watered your own roots in silence until now you bloom without needing anyone to watch. If love enters now, it is not a prize for loneliness. It is not a reward for waiting. It is a mutual offering, a sacred exchange, because she doesn't love to fill a void anymore. She loves from overflow. And when they say, "She changed," say yes. Yes, she did. Because the woman who walked through the fire of being unseen does not come back as the same version. She doesn't beg. She doesn't chase. She chooses. She is done waiting for the world to discover her. She has discovered herself. And when she steps into love now, it's with open eyes, steady hands, and a heart that no longer flinches at the idea of standing alone if needed. So press that like button if you're walking this road. Subscribe if you have ever felt unseen but sensed deep down that you were becoming something rare. Because this is not the end, my friends. This is the return. And the woman who returns whole does not ask for space. She takes it. If you have felt unseen, unheard, or unchosen, let me tell you this plainly. It wasn't a setback. It was a sacred setup for your return. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt piece by piece. And when you rise out of your silence, you don't come back needing love. You come back embodying it. So if this message stirred something real inside you, like this video, subscribe for more truth that honors your depth, and share it with another woman who is walking her way home in the dark, because the world doesn't need more perfect women. It needs more awakened ones. Stay grounded, stay glowing.